Chaps, I've invited Vince, and we're literally going to be talking about bollocks rather than talking bollocks like the rest of the chat, like the rest of the videos. Because Vince, we were doing a talk at a university or something like that, and I must admit, I was like, okay, I'm used to these mental health conversations, and I'm thinking, we're speaking to 15, 18-year-olds, that kind of age bracket. Why is there a dude from a testicular cancer? Why? And then you said something in there which scared the living daylights out of me. So introduce yourself, mate, because yeah, we're not a cancer charity, we're a men's mental health charity. But ask anybody who's had cancer or even suspicion of cancer, the impact it has on their mental health.
So hello everyone, my name's Vince. I'm the CEO of It's on the Ball, a Testicular Cancer Charity. We're based in Norwich, but we cover the whole of East Anglia, and we will go further afield to spread our message if needs be. Like Dan was saying there, the thing about testicular cancer is it's a young man's cancer. It predominates in the sort of 15 to 34, 35 age group, and that surprises a lot of people. And we sort of know the big sort of danger with that is that young guys just don't perceive cancer to be their problem. They do sort of see it as an older person's issue, which generally is, cancers in young people are relatively rare, but for us fellas, testicular cancer is the most common form of cancer in young men. So, our big thing is to get that message across to younger guys.
So I didn't know that bit either.
Yeah.
Wow, that's scary. But anyway, so I'm chipping in. Sorry, carry
No, that's fine. And I mean, like you were saying about cancer and affecting your mental well-being. Now, I say cancer never leaves you, because it's always there in the back of your mind. If you've been diagnosed and treated or whatever, every day you're opening up the paper or it's on the news or on your social media feed or something about some celebrity going through his cancer journey and all the rest of it. And every time that is a bit of a reminder. And I think quite often there'll be that, what if it comes back? What if it's still there? And that can play on your mind. So, like I say, I don't think it ever leaves you. I think it's always there somewhere. It may not be in your body, but it may be in your mind, sort of thing, as a thought rather than a physical disease, as it were.
I'd have to agree with that, because I remember after I had my tumour removed from my neck, every year I had to go back and go in the hole in the wall and all this kind of stuff. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
And thankfully that slowed down.
Sorry, that's my home phone. My wife's not answering.
Say again, sorry?
Sorry, that was my home phone ringing away there.
Oh, right, okay, no, that's fine. But no, you're right. Obviously, I was very, very lucky with mine. Mine was literally lobbed in the bin. Literally that. But yeah, but it's. Do you think it's one of the most embarrassing cancers?
I don't know. I don't think so. Actually, I think there's.
Okay.
I think penile cancer might be more embarrassing for guys.
What's that?
But so you can get cancer on the penis, and so again, that's really rare, and I don't know very much about it.
Yeah.
But if you look at a charity called Orchid, which are a national charity, a lot of people have heard of Orchid. They're prostate, testicular, and penile cancer. So I think as a bloke, if you've got cancer of the dick, as it were, that is much more embarrassing, I would think. And again, I think that sort of masculinity that would really affect your mental well-being, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think the thing what took my interest is this. I remember the second you said 15, and my son's 15. The second you said that, I was like, I didn't know that, and I went straight into literally after whatever the Zoom thing was, ringing up my son after school. I was just like, you need to just check yourself. But the trouble is, there's that line, isn't there? Like, you can't scare them.
No, we don't want to scare them. When I do we do a lot of going into schools and colleges and workplaces, talking about this. And I always say, I haven't come here today to scare you. I've just come here to give some information which you can use throughout the rest of your life, and it may save your life. So don't get too hung up on these things, because you could worry yourself to death, and you may.
And I think we have had a few videos where people have got, what is it? The technical term is health dysphoria, but I think some people call it, us old timers, hypochondria.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have to be very, very careful, isn't it? But it's just. So how do you check what are people looking for? Seems weird having.
So it's not weird, and the thing is, you hear people talking about cancer and lumps a lot. They're all, it's always cancer, a lump, but it doesn't always present as a lump.
Yeah.
So there are a range of different symptoms. So when you're checking your balls, best time to do it when you've had a bath or a shower, because your skin's a bit softer when it's warm, and when our bodies are warm, our balls drop a little bit. So a bit easier to examine. So once a month when you've had a bath or a shower, and you are looking for lumps, but like I say, it may not always present as a lump. That lump could be painful, or it may not be. You may have an ache in your balls themselves, or in that general area, in your lower abdomen, an ache or a dull pain. You can get what they call a dragging sensation, and some guys have described that to me as feeling like one was heavier than the other, and it was pulling down on one side. So it just felt like one of the nuts was heavier than normal. And you can get a feeling as though it's getting harder, it's starting to solidify. It's another symptom.
Right, okay.
And you can get a swelling. So when I say swelling, fellas, it's just going to keep getting bigger. And I know during COVID, a guy here in Norwich went to the doctors. One of his nuts was the size of a grapefruit. It was enormous. He could hardly walk.
I'm literally,
and
literally crossing my legs now.
yeah, like Buster Gonads, going down the street with a wheelbarrow. But he was guilty of that thing that a lot of fellas are, and he was telling himself it'll get better, and it's getting worse, and he's telling himself it'll get better, and it's getting bigger and worse. So whatever it is, get over that embarrassment and go see the doctors. And I do understand that. For guys, it can be embarrassing to go, walking in and say, "Doc, I think there's something wrong with my nuts. Can you have a look?" Because that's what they need to do. But don't die of embarrassment.
I think that's the main thing, because this is just how my head works. So I apologise, but it's just surely, especially if you're in a relationship and something's wrong, and I don't know that the partner wants to be a bit frisky and you're putting them off or whatever else, it's.
Yeah, and I don't know that guy's background, but like I said, I do know it was in COVID, and maybe he was on his own and a bit isolated and had no one to talk to. Yeah. And he was probably sat there watching this thing increase in size and, going through all sorts of things in his mind. And at the time, we're being told not to go to the doctors unless it's really important because of COVID, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, but they can get big.
Yeah, no, and that's the main thing, and it's just prevention is better, but prevention is better than cure, isn't it? Really, And I've done interviews or conversations with a couple of doctors, one of them more than once, and he said it's better to waste our time, than not come at all, than not come at all, really. And let's face it, we pay the taxes. Let's play that card.
That's right, and doctors aren't embarrassed anyway. They've seen it all before, so that's. Guys don't need to be embarrassed about, getting a tackle out in front of a doctor.
Yeah, no, exactly that. Well, the doctor would have probably forgotten about it by the end of the day anyway. That's probably like the fifth one they've seen of the day anyway, and all of that. So what would you say stops blokes from opening up about it then?
I think it probably is embarrassment. It probably is just and that thing that guys are a lot worse than women for looking after their own health.
Absolutely.
And they do tell themselves it'll get better, and they don't want it. They don't want it to be something bad. I think that's the thing. And I know I sometimes talk about what people tend to do now. If they've got a symptom, they'll Google that. They'll just look it up on the internet. They'll say, "Oh, I've got a lump on my nuts." They'll Google that, and there'll be a list of things it could be. And right at the top, it'll say testicular cancer, and right at the bottom of the list, it'll say harmless cyst. And guys will go right to that bottom one and say, "It's harmless cyst, I'll be all right."
Yeah.
Rather than looking at the top and, self-diagnosing on the internet, there's a bit of an issue.
We do not recommend doing that at all. Bear in mind, I run a marketing business, and part of that job is to help websites get the keywords up and all of this kind of stuff. So absolutely, half the stuff you read on the internet isn't factual at all. It's because they've got a better marketing budget. It really is.
I mean, there is good information out there. I just say, just be wary of trying to self-diagnose on the internet.
Absolutely.
because you will go to the best outcome rather than the worst outcome.
Yeah. So can I just ask one question? And I'm going to be quite. I just need to ask it because somebody asked me the other day. You probably heard it all. Just because you think, which probably it won't be, you're not going to lose your balls, are you? Obviously, I don't mean that thing, because somebody asked me the other day when I said about, because yesterday actually when I said about it, I was like, oh, does that mean you have to have your balls cut? But surely that's not.
Yeah, it is the case. So what they will do in the UK, if it is a tumour on your testicle, in nearly every case in the UK, they will remove the testicle.
Oh,
Because that's the easiest option for them. And I know that sounds grim, but
yeah.
it's better than the alternative.
Which is death, basically, isn't it?
Say again?
Which is death, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what you look. You know, you're looking at a fatality.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys. In fact, I was doing a talk in a school last week, and lads asked me, "So, well, why don't they just give you chemotherapy?" Well, they could do, but chemo, you know, they're pumping a lot of toxic chemicals into you.
Yeah.
The fact of chemo is it's a really risky, dangerous treatment.
What it is, yeah. It's
Whereas, like, you know, 20 minutes under the knife and
yeah.
remove a testicle is dead easy. And what they don't want to do, the other question we get is, why don't they just remove the tumour and leave the testicle? Well, if they do that, and even if they just leave 1 or 2 cancer cells in there, they will just grow really rapidly, and spread really. So they don't want to run that risk. So, and the other funny thing I say to people, I explain, I say, well, if they're going to remove a testicle, how are they going to do that? And you probably think, cut the scrotum, we'll have him out that way. It's not quite that easy, guys. They make the incision in the groin area. So the whole testicle comes out with a bit of the tube, so out it comes like a little conker, a big conker, you never know. So out it comes that way. And I've heard a nurse talk about this stuff, and she says, oh, that's an insignificant incision. That's not quite how I describe it. But it is a really simple operation, 5 or 6 stitches in there to get over the incision. And hopefully if you've detected it early enough and have, you know, done the treatment early and it hasn't spread elsewhere in the body, then that will be the end of the treatment. They sometimes might give you a little blast of chemo, but just a little bit. But the big danger with testicular cancer is it spreads really quickly. The type of tumours it can be, it will spread to the lung, the liver, the brain, through the lymphatic system really quickly, and that is the big danger of it. So,
okay. So that obviously the worst case is death. Let's not be worse, but if it did result into an operation, they normally just take the one, not both, anyway.
Yeah, so they'll just take the one. And just
thank God for that. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, and well, because that is a really frequent question that we get. Because guys, you know, will I still get an erection? Yeah. Can I still reproduce? Yeah. The remaining testicle will produce healthy sperm. If you haven't already got children, they will offer to bank sperm for you. But I think here in this area in East Anglia, if you've got 2 children already, even if they're from a previous relationship, they won't bank sperm on the NHS.
Right, okay.
So you'd have to have that done privately, which is really expensive and it takes time. And there's this issue of it being a fast spreading cancer, so they want to operate quickly.
Yeah.
So that can be quite an issue for some couples.
Well, okay. But to be honest, even making that decision it's better than writing your will, isn't it?
Yeah.
So is there any other like taboo unknown stuff? Because for me, that 15-year-old, because most of our audience, they've got families, they've got kids, they've got sons, and all this kind of stuff. So for me, that was the one bit. As soon as you said 15, that scared me a bit. But scared me, made me question it. Is there any other like things like that? What we should probably know about?
But we don't get asked a lot what causes this type of cancer, and they say there aren't, there's no real cause of it, or they can't pin it down to one particular thing. But there are some risk factors, and I think that can be it's a bit confusing sometimes. But you just have to remember a risk factor doesn't mean you're definitely going to develop this thing.
Yeah.
And likewise, if you're not in these risk factors, you're safe. But And some of these are things like if you were born with an undescended testicle, you're more at risk. But not many guys have even heard of that. And it just means when you were first born, one of your balls didn't drop into the sac, into the scrotum properly. They fix that with a little operation while you're still a baby, while you're still an infant. So you probably don't know. So parents know more than individuals do. If you've had mumps, you're a bit more at risk. Tall guys are more at risk. It can be familial, so it can be run down the male line of the family. Particularly brothers, if you've got a brother who's been diagnosed, you're much more at risk than the general population and things like that. So the big one, though, because all those things you can't do anything about, no, absolutely. Mumps or you haven't. But the big one is cannabis use. There's strong links between cannabis use and testicular cancer.
Wow, okay.
And that surprises a lot of people, and we get a bit of pushback on that sometimes. But I just say, just Google it. Testicular cancer, cannabis use. It'll come up with a lot of studies that have been done in the United States and some of the Scandinavian countries where there were a lot more cases per head of population than there is in the UK, linking the two things. So, and again, I don't tell people what to do. I just make them aware. If you
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. We've seen loads of comments about when we ask it's a silly question, but when we ask questions like, "Oh, how do you deal with?" It's like with social media. You always do like them generic posts just to keep the page active. And every now and again, we'll say, "How do you deal with your mental health?" And I guarantee, as soon as I put that on there, there'll be at least 2 or 3 people will be like, "I'll get stoned."
Yeah.
So, but I'm not here to judge them. Do you know what I mean?
That's
if the science backs up what he's saying, then it's the facts.
Yeah.
But it's up to them what they want to do with those facts, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
And that. So how do you? I'm just conscious of the time there as well. But how do you? So you're always yapping on about testicular cancer. That's basically your job, and is that the same like the mental health stuff? How do you look after you hear a lot of horror stories? You must do. How do you not take that on? How do you keep your head straight?
That's a really good question. I've never thought about it.
Well, when I ask that question to a lot of CEOs of mental health or charities, what give a shit? If I'm honest with you, they can never think of an answer, or the answer is they don't.
Yeah.
And that's quite scary itself.
I guess over the years I've come to terms with it, and it's just how it is. And some people say, "Oh, you're really brave talking about it," and I don't think I'm really brave. I just think I just don't. I want people to know about this stuff, and if I can do that and raise awareness, and if you save one guy's life, then big tick in the box. If you just make more people aware and less people are getting diagnosed, at a late stage, where they do have to go through loads of chemo and stuff like that, tick in the box.
Well, it just shows how much just talking about this stuff. So I'll use myself as an example. I spoke to my son. Bit of an awkward, funny comment. I'm very much a piss take. You probably work that one out. So actually, it wasn't that embarrassing because I took the piss. And even with like a week late or last week or whatever, it was like, I told some people at school about it.
Yeah.
But even my friend Tammy, when I spoke to her son, that was a weird conversation. Talking to your friend's 15-year-old son about their testicles, that was a weird one. But even there, it was like, I went to school because they didn't know. So the impact of that, just dropping that seed.
Yeah, and that's what we say when we're going to schools, and you can be in a classroom of 14, 15-year-olds, and most of them, they appear not to be interested, But then, when they go outside, and when we've had the feedback from the teachers, they said, "Oh yeah, the lads couldn't stop talking about that."
Yeah, no.
So you've sown that seed, and they get out in the playground or whatever, and they are like, "Oh, we had this daft beggar. What about him and his balls?" And all that sort of stuff. So.
Absolutely, yeah. But before we end the call, how do you deal with your mental health? You didn't answer. You got out.
I didn't answer that. No.
Typical CEO of a charity. Typical, that is.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I've just come to terms with it, and
sorry, you did answer it then.
Yeah, and it's not something you can do anything about. So you've just got to. This is how I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That was a good call. So I appreciate it. But yet again, it's, I'll end this with one of those things. So the people like, well, they talk about cancer and mental health charity, because I've seen the comments before. Try having cancer.
Yeah. And like I say, it's always there and it's always in your head.
Yeah.
You know, and guys do go through, you know, like you were saying, if you're diagnosed, a lot of guys, when they finish treatment, go through this process or this thing of, why me? Why did I get cancer? I'm a young man, I eat healthy, I do a lot of, you know, physical activity, I'm doing all the right stuff, but I've just had cancer. Why me? Why is part of my masculinity gone? So then there's a body image thing as well. One of your balls is missing. Or they will offer to fit a false one, but a lot of guys, some do, some don't. You know, so there's all those issues that go with it. And they're all, you know, they're all mental issues, emotional issues.
Yeah, but it was funny because it goes back to the true meaning of man up. This is in the Oxford Dictionary. This is what all of our branding is always with a question mark. We're not telling anyone to man up, but the meaning of man up in the Oxford Dictionary is to be brave enough to deal with an unpleasant or an awkward situation.
Yeah.
So in this context, if you got a lumpy ball or something's not right, your balls don't feel right. In this context, man up. Be brave enough to deal with an unpleasant or awkward situation. That's the first time I've ended a video like that.
Cool.
Literally telling people to man up on that. But just be brave enough to deal with an unpleasant or awkward situation.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit the record button because you're one of those what we can just keep going. Bear me 1 second.